know that our speaker, Anthony Modesto Milian, he's going to share a little bit more about us, but he has a national, transnational presence, and he is also friends with the historian Jorell Meléndez Badillo, who worked with Bad Bunny on the last album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos. And actually, Anthony, this past Friday, was in Chicago with the professor Jorell Meléndez Badillo, and some of us around the country and in Puerto Rico and beyond, we were tuning in. So we are so lucky that Anthony, who creates this great content, has more than 500,000 followers. I was going to say voters, followers everywhere. That he's dedicating his time today to be with us, as well as his great friend, who is Luis.
No, Neil. Yeah. Neil Lopez. Yeah.
Neil Lopez. So we're so happy, and we also want to recognize our director for the Center of Africana and African American Studies. He speaks Spanish, but today he's going to speak to us in English. But because he's co-hosting today's event, and Dr. Marlon Smith, has a big invitation for you for this Saturday. Dr. Marlon Smith, what should we be doing this Saturday?
I'm sorry? Say that again.
Yes, this Saturday, what do you recommend we do?
Come out to the closing of Black History Month. We are having our Black History Month Festival. And that festival consists of our community high school students who will be engaged in Black History Month Quiz Bowl. And then also across the street, we'll have the State of the Black Studies Symposium, which will have different conversations around freedom schools and as well as the art of protest and how communities have used art and music and language as a symbol and sign for protest and resistance. And then we'll have a larger conversation from one or two. That's the academic work, but we'll also have music and food, and it will open up the Black History Month Festival. Will open up at 9 a.m. With the commemoration to the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who just recently passed. So you're all invited to come out. It will be at the URC building at 9 a.m. and we will have activities at the URC and then at the HEC building as well for the Black History Quiz Bowl. And so we have a whole festival, and if you want to come out that evening at 5 o'clock, we have a movie screening of Forming Freedom. So we have the big closing out of Black History Month on that day, on this Saturday from 9 to 1.
Muchas gracias, Dr. Marlon Smith. Habla español, panameño también, tejano.
Fabuloso.
Y vamos a empezar pronto, but if you're a community member, can you raise your hand? Thank you for coming. These events are always for you. Gracias. Our alumni. If you're a staff or faculty member, raise your hand. Yes. If you're a student, we have some high school students here and some community college and everything. So we're so excited to have you here. At the very end, please don't run away. We're going to take a big group photo, okay? Well, with all of that said, Anthony, we are so excited to have you here, and it's all yours.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you all for showing up today. It's a pleasure to be in community with you. First of all, I want to give thanks to Araceli for organizing all of this. When she first approached me about it, I was like, oh, why me? You know, I didn't think it was, something that was people here would be interested in. I also want to thank my wonderful videographer. I contacted him last minute, Neil Lopez, amazing. Today we're going to talk about when archives are incomplete, storytelling and the power of community memory. That's a lot, right? Let's start off with who I am. My name is Anthony Modesto Milian, originally from Brooklyn, New York, of Puerto Rican descent, like a lot of Puerto Ricans. You know what I'm talking. Yeah, I know. We talked before this, right? So I'm a content creator. Like I started doing that around the pandemic. Like most people were able to branch out and start doing other things. A public historian. That's something that I've always been interested in, and that's like basically taking history outside of the academic sphere and putting it into places where people make it accessible. Basically the democratization of history and historical facts. And then of course a storyteller. I love the story of my people, whether they're Puerto Rican, whether they're black, whether they're indigenous. I love the story of the people that make up who I am. So my goal with my platform, with my public historian platform, is to tell the stories of the people that look like me, right? Because I think that's important. Can I get an amen? No? Thank you, thank you. So what is public history? So the textbook definition of what public history is the practice of researching, interpreting, and presenting history for and with a broad non-academic public, often called applied history. It moves history outside of the classroom, all that stuff. So basically, what public history is, for layman's terms, is taking history outside of buildings of academia, outside of books, and putting them in places where they are accessible to everyone. So think about your libraries, your museums, your cultural reenactments, things like that. But we need to actually dig a little bit deeper into public history because it's changed. We live in a digital world now. So we deal with public history on our YouTubes, on our Substacks, on our Instagrams, on our Facebooks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I put a little caveat there. The most important and efficient way, public history is the most important and efficient way of disseminating and democratizing history to a vast audience that we have available today. People, the first thing they do when they want to look at the news, when they want to fact check, when they want to do anything is what do? What do they pick up first? Their phone. Perfect. So why not use that to disseminate that information on a larger scale when it comes to history? Okay. I don't want to get too political, but so we live in I appreciate that. I appreciate that. We're living in a world where I was reading, okay, I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm going to tell you about an article I read. Is anybody here familiar with Medgar Evers? Okay, wonderful. For those who don't know, Medgar Evers was a civil rights activist in Mississippi. He was trying to desegregate the University of Mississippi, and he ended up getting killed by a Klansman in his driveway. Ended up getting shot and killed, right? His house is now it's like a national landmark. And there was an article that came out about 3 weeks ago that said the people because they get federal funds, they're no longer allowed to refer to the killer of Medgar Evers as a white supremacist, right? He was a card-carrying member of the KKK. Now that is important. Being able to name things as they are is important to historic storytelling, right? And it changes the whole narrative of why Medgar Evers was killed, why he lived, his purpose in life, if you don't mention the fact that his killer was a white supremacist. So, when our archives are incomplete, our communities remember. We are living in a time where there is a reframing of history. People are trying to retell the stories of people that look like us. People are trying to retell the stories of the narratives. And we have to remember that history doesn't just live in books, okay? It lives in our communities. It lives with people that are around us. It lives in the stories, and it lives in the memories. And I'm going to show you 3 videos of how that's demonstrated and why that's possible. Is anyone familiar with the Tulsa Race Massacre? Okay. Tulsa Race Massacre was exactly as it said. It was a race massacre. Happened over 100 years ago. For decades, the state of Oklahoma tried to stifle it, basically saying it wasn't what people claimed it to be. But this lady she's passed away now. At the time, she was 107 years old, and she was there. So I'm going to play you her testimony, and this is a reminder of why our community stories matter. Okay. Oh. Wait a minute. Sorry, guys.
Chair. I'm the daughter of Lucinda Ellis and John Wesley Ford of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm the sister of Hughes Van Willows, who's also here today. I'm a survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. 2 weeks ago, I celebrated my 107th birthday. Today, I'm visiting Washington, D.C. for the first time in my life. I'm here seeking justice, and I'm asking my country to acknowledge what happened in Tulsa in 1921. The night of the massacre, I was awakened by my family. My parents and 5 siblings were there. I was told we had to leave, and that was it. I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see black men being shot, black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and see fire. I still see black businesses being burned. I still hear airplanes flying overhead. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. Our country may forget this history, but I cannot. I will not, and other survivors do not, and our descendants do not. When my family was forced to leave Tulsa, I lost my chance of an education. I never finished school past the 4th grade. I have never made much money in my country. State and city took a lot from me. Despite this, I spent time supporting the war effort in the shipyards of California, but most of my life I was a domestic worker serving white families. I never made much money, but to this day I can barely afford my everyday needs. All the while the city of this Tulsa have unjustly used the names and stories of victims like me to enrich myself and its white allies through the 30s million raised by the Tulsa Centennial Commissioner while I continue to live in poverty. I am a 107-year-old and have never seen justice. I pray that one day I will. I have been blessed with a long life and have seen the best and the worst of this country. I think about the terror, horror inflicted upon black people in this country every day. This continued committee has the power to lead us down a better path. I'm asking that my country acknowledge what has been happened to me, the traumas and the pain, the loss, and I ask survivors and descendants to be given a chance to seek justice, open the door. All of you know how easy it is to deny that a violent mob threatened your lives and took your property. For 70 years, the city of Tulsa and the stream of chambers told us that the massacre didn't happen, like we didn't see it with our own eyes. You have me here right now. You see Mother Randall, you see my brother Hughes Van Ellis. We live this history and we can't ignore it. It's our lives with us. We lost everything that day, our homes, our churches, our newspapers, our theaters, our lives. Greenwood represented all the best of what was possible for black people in America and for all the people.
Thank you very much. We appreciate very much your...
Right, I'll leave that there. That's important because when narratives are, there's an attempt to change the narratives of things that have happened, we need our communities that will tell us what actually happened, okay? not only, and I played it almost to the end because I wanted to get a point across, not only that what her lived experience is, but how her lived experience affected the rest of her life, right? Things that happen to our ancestors, regardless of if they're good or bad, they affect them for the rest of their lives. And it should go into the historical narrative that these things don't just exist in a vacuum. They affect people. They affect people that are around people. Another thing that I want to show you is this. If you're Puerto Rican, do you know who that is? Lolita Lebron, right. If you're not familiar with Lolita Lebron, she was part of the Nationalist Party of Puerto Rico. She was 100%, she wanted a free Puerto Rico, right? And one thing that I find interesting is that we often talk about our ancestors or civil rights activists as these docile people, right? And I'm going to play this video. In the 90s, she was asked to testify beyond Congress, in front of Congress, excuse me. And one thing that Lolita Lebron did, she led an attack on Congress, right? She went with 3 other men. They walked into Congress, they unfurled the Puerto Rican flag, and they started shooting into the gallery of the Congress. She was eventually given a presidential pardon. She ended up passing away, I believe, in 2009 or 2010. But I really want you to listen to her words. This is in Spanish, but there are English subtitles for you to reference. And I want you to listen to her words, and I want you to ask yourself, does this sound like somebody that is docile? So.
Presidenta del Partido Nacionalista de Puerto Rico, exprisionera política de los Estados Unidos. Soy la que dirigió el ataque al Congreso de los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica el 1 de marzo de 1954 en defensa de la liberación del pueblo de Puerto Rico. Saquen esas bombas atómicas del medio del mundo, que ustedes se las dieron al mundo, y después que se las dieron, no, yo le voy a decir a ustedes, voy a terminar ya, no quisiera que mi país nadie se tuviera que mandar a callar por defender la libertad de mi país, y ella no se ha encontrado todavía. Señores, no hay odio, no hay nada, solamente lo que hay es el derecho y el deber de un pueblo a ser libre, y nada trabajará aquí, nada más que la liberación total y plena del pueblo de Puerto Rico. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
So, does she seem like a docile person? So, so the first video is showing essentially how the narrative building of our lived experience affects our whole lives. But this video shows you how people were. Like she's a badass. And she took that up until when she died. She wanted to die seeing a free Puerto Rico, which unfortunately she didn't. But she was like this up until when she passed away. So, the third video, do you know who that is? Yeah, that is her. Right. So, one of the things I found really interesting about this is that you never know. When you look through historical archives, you never know who you're going to find. I just happened to find this, and she was in it. In the 70s through the 90s, there was a movement in New York where landlords were kicking people out into the street, right? There was a huge homeless problem in New York City. And so these landlords weren't letting anyone move in. Their whole goal was to either burn down the apartments and collect the insurance money. If you look at there's a documentary called The Bronx is Burning, where they would burn down these apartments, collect the insurance money, even sometimes with people inside them, or they would kick people out onto the street. There ended up being a huge homeless problem in New York City. And at the same time, there was a huge housing vacancy. So there was groups of people, large groups of people that knew carpentry, they knew plumbing, they knew electrical, and they said, you know what, we can go into these apartments, renovate them. Today, by today's standards, it would be called squatting, but for them, it was basically housing liberation. And so I found this video, and that is Rosario Dawson, and her family was part of that. So, I'm going to play this video. It's pretty interesting.
Why don't you live in a real apartment? I say because I want my room the way I want it to be. This is my bed. He made this out of wood and stuff. He's gonna take the same carpet right here, that carpet that he cut off. He's gonna put on here, And he's gonna make it so it's very soft and I don't have to wear any socks when I go to bed. They say, I wish my room was this way or that way, and they say I wish it was too. And I say, well, I have a chance to make it that way, and it's...
Mommy, I'm gonna videotape all my clean clothes on the couch. I'm a mother of 2, I hold a full-time job, happily married over 9 years now, and...
Oh, that's her mother.
We have a beautiful apartment. We've worked on it. It's been over 2 years that we've been working on our apartment, and it's one of the best apartments I've ever lived in.
Mama, would you shuffle for me?
This was a better answer here for my kids.
I don't shuffle very well.
And I think they'll appreciate more because they see how hard it is. That, you know, what you want in life, you gotta work for.
We are not squatters. We're homesteaders. We work. We do rubble removal. We put up, we hire electricians, we hire plumbers, we hire engineers to help us and teach us how to do the work properly so that it is up to the code of the city of New York.
You cannot renovate a building that meets codes by yourself. You have to be an electrician, you have to be a plumber. Cannot be done by yourself, and we don't believe in squatters.
The typical situation is just somebody existing, hardly living in these buildings, just using it for a roof over their heads, just a little warmth, but certainly not a fixed-up accommodation.
Washing machine. This is where the dishes are. This is our water heater.
Hot water heater.
Hot water heater. This kit holds all the hot water. This my father made. He sandpapered it.
As you do things, you take pride in it. You know, I'm not gonna want to see somebody come up and spray paint my door. I'm gonna be watching out for it. Because it's my door, and I put it up, and I'm taking the pride of every little screw that I put into it.
People say that we're a very strong family, and I say, well, yes, that is true, because we stick together like one person, like a ball. Inside of the ball, we're all people all over together. It's very exciting. You never know what's gonna happen next.
I love you, baby. Did I do good or what? I'm telling you.
So I think it's really interesting because when we document like this, our historical narratives, we never know who we'll find. I mean, she's an award-winning actress. I posted this on my Instagram and she saw it and liked it. So I think that is like proof that that was her, that's you. So I thought it was really interesting. Let's move forward here. So I wrote this: when society refuses to acknowledge us, we have to make them, and we have to keep record of it. And no one's coming to save us. That's just it. We have to be the people that document our stories. We can't depend on anyone else to do it. We have to get it done. And we have to keep record of it. And we have to make sure that these stories are in a safe place so that people remember when time goes on. And really the thing is, the documentation of our stories is a blueprint to fight back, right? We still use things from the civil rights era today because we have it documented. So how do we do it, right? We do it a variety of different ways. We do video storytelling, similar to what I do on social media, making videos, letting people know. We do photography. When I think about David Gonzalez, Ricky Flores, I think about Jamil Shabazz, Gordon Parks, people who went around their communities and documented the birth of hip hop, the AIDS crisis, and things like that. We do interviews. Essentially, when I think about NPR's StoryCorps, where they go around to America, different parts of America, and they capture these stories of people who lived during all different types of events, depending on where they live. Archival research. If you're Puerto Rican, there's El Centro in New York City, Hunter College. I'm thinking of the International African American Museum, the Schomburg Center in New York City as well. These are all places where we could do archival research on the things that have happened in our communities. And then of course, everyone has a cell phone in here, I think. There's all the social media platforms, right? There's a million of them out there. There's Instagram, TikTok, Substack, you name it. These are ways of not only documenting, but also disseminating the information out there as well. Why? I mentioned it before, but we are living in a world of rising misinformation and media engagement. People are consuming more media, and they're consuming the wrong media. I saw a post the other day that said black people were better off under segregation, and it had 100,000 views and 20,000 likes. That's 100,000 people that were misinformed, right? I've seen videos that said redlining was not about race, it was about socioeconomic status, when it's 100% about race. So we are living in a world of rising misinformation, and people are consuming it. So my takeaway to you all is to be the person that fights back against that, especially when it comes down to your culture. But another thing is, people need our diverse narratives. They want our diverse narratives. Bad Bunny is from an island that you can go from one end to the other in 3 hours, right? And 135 million people listened to him sing at the Super Bowl. People want to hear our diverse narratives. People want to hear what we have to say. They want to have conversations. They want to build community. They want to know, and they want to interact. So my takeaway today to everyone here is to be the person to put out your cultural information and put it out accurately, use resources, cite your sources, and let people know, like, this is who we are, this is who I am, and do it consistently because the world really does want to hear it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to do Q&A. I wonder if we can go to Instagram.
Sure.
And I think I put it up here.
Which one?
Oh, just here. I don't know if you want to show anything you've done recently.
Sure.
But and then
Let's
as we
see.
think of questions. But I know that one question I have for Anthony is that every day I see him posting, like, I don't know how many times, and I'm sure that takes so much time to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering how long it takes to do a video.
I give myself, so from start to finish, I give myself an hour, unless it's for a client. Then I give myself longer. But from start to finish, I give myself an hour. I also have a process. So I will write a script probably the night before. I'll record everything from start to finish and edit everything start to finish. And then I'll add my elements in. This was a longer piece that I did. I did this for the National Museum for Puerto Rican Arts and Culture. It's about 9 minutes long. I'm not going to get into the weeds of it. But it's about the Puerto Rican history of Chicago, if you're familiar with the Young Lords, and basically that. This is another video that I did. I don't know, I think Instagram took the sound away, but let me see if I can find something. Let's see. Okay, this is one that I recently did about Bomba.
Which is a grassroots, beautiful cultural hub, beautiful black and brown music, concentrating, right, and preserving bomba puertorriqueña, black music de Puerto Rico. When we talk about bomba, people see it as like a choice and it's a necessity. And so when you change your thought process in bomba, then that's where you find intention and purpose. I'm a southern woman from the south side of Puerto Rico, from Guayama. This is why la escuelita is red, black, and yellow. Every pueblo has a flag, ¿verdad? Y sus colores. And then we have all this beauty, right? This is our little museum. We got this here from when I was 5 years old. For folks to come in and know that this is not where it started, This is also part of the process of where it's going. They stay straight. We were very efficient with our stuff. Like, we need to make sure that we wrote songs so we can make sure that we can
So that's, if you're familiar with bomba music, it's the traditional music from Puerto Rico. It comes from Africa. And so there's a school in Chicago that teaches bomba music. And I was able to connect with her through Instagram. And essentially, when I went to Chicago last week, I was able to connect and make that video. But I want to leave the floor open. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. Uh-huh.
You know, I was like, I'm listening to you talk about the history of African American history, cultural relation, right? For instance, in that you But I'd love to hear more about you. How do you address the kind of erasure of African people in Latin culture?
Right.
Or por ejemplo, la Afro-Latina.
Yeah, like reggaeton. Right.
Bomba.
Right.
We have this argument now even about the historical legacy of bomba.
Right. Right.
And bachata.
Right.
And so I'm just curious, how are you thinking about it, trying to keep those stories alive even in Latin America?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Thank you. I think when it comes to the erasure of the African people and the African narratives of Latin America, it can get very complicated. But I think it's important that we don't shy away from going back to the origins. Like if we're talking about bachata, right? We could talk about Romeo Santos, we could talk about Aventura all day, right? But we need to go back to Anthony Santos, who's a black man, right? If we're talking about reggaeton, we go back to General, the Panamanian, Jamaican man. We go back to these roots, right? And I think it's important that we take people back to the roots of things, right? Like, oh, you know, this person's great. You know, I love Karol G. She's great, right? But this is where it originated from, right? The same thing with bomba. You know, there's no bomba without Los Hermanos Ayala. You know, there's no bomba without them. These are black men that live in Loíza, that live in the island, and you know, so to answer your question is always remember to take people back to the roots, right? Regardless of if they want to go there or not, this is where we're going. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I just kind of want to pick your brain. So I work at a bar, and I had a conversation with a regular of mine he's a older white gentleman, and he asked me what I thought about the Super Bowl halftime show, and I, of course, was like, oh, it was fantastic. It was multicultural, multi-generational, art, history, dancing, love, family, marriage, small businesses, et cetera, et cetera. And I could kind of tell he wasn't. He said that he was like, well, it was really only about one culture, and I couldn't understand anything. You know what I mean? He was not very receptive of what I said. Do you have any thoughts on how to approach conversations like that with people? I know we can't necessarily change their minds,
Right.
but just any thoughts on how to approach that?
Absolutely. So like, willful ignorance is dangerous, right? So you have to really approach a situation like that to see if this person like wants to learn or if they are just being willfully ignorant. Now, if they want to learn, then you could go deeper like and say like if you're talking about Puerto Rico, you're not talking about just one culture. Thank you. Thank you. It's a lifesaver. That's why I hired him. You're not just talking about one culture. Puerto Rico is multicultural, right? There's people that look like you in Puerto Rico, there's people that look like me, and there's every color in between. So, you know, really with a situation like that, you have to basically take a step back and see if that person really wants to learn, and then teach, or if they just want to be willfully ignorant, then leave them where they're at. You know, some people you can't bring them on the journey with you. That's it. Anyone else?
As we're waiting for questions, Anthony, I ran into you at a Black History event
Yes.
at Rockford. You were there, and you shared with me something that I had already really picked up on, and you shared, wow, I don't think folks realize the magnitude of the pride that Puerto Ricans are feeling with, you know, Bad Bunny's performance in 2 weeks.
Right.
And I was struck by that because I'm not Puerto Rican, I'm Mexican American, but I was feeling so much pride, the Spanish. Can you just share with us what it meant to what it has meant for Puerto Ricans that you've been with? If you can share with the audience that last week, for example, you were in Chicago. What were you doing there?
Yeah.
You were at the Instituto de Puerto Rico. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so this album, so my father passed away in 2023. And the last time I saw him, I took a photo with him. So when this album came out, Debí tirar más photo, like I thought to myself, like, man, I really wish I had taken more photos, right? And so, when I listen, I can't like listen to certain songs on that album without crying because, it meant a lot to me knowing that, I felt like the album was written for me, right? It felt like it was written for me. But Puerto Ricans, they take pride in where they're from, right? You guys know. They take pride in where they're from, and I feel like being Puerto Rican is something. There's something magical. I hesitate to use the word magical, but there's something special about being from a tiny little island. When you know the history of Puerto Rico, the history of colonialism and disenfranchisement, knowing that these people are still here, right? And being kind of forced to move out of the island through Operation Bootstrap and things like that. And then you have, Benito, who's like a son of Puerto Rico, and he's reaching hundreds of millions, if not billions of people. There are people who never speak Spanish that know all the words to his songs. It's crazy. I see these kids on TikTok in Uganda, and they're singing his music, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, this is amazing, So for me, it's a point of, like, I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I get to share in my Puerto Ricanness. I'm thankful that I get to experience this as someone that's inside, not someone that's out. The only thing I wish is that, I wish my dad was around to see it because, he wasn't a big fan of reggaeton or anything like that. He liked salsa, he liked Willie Colon, but I know he would have loved Baile Inolvidable. I know he would have loved the music that was on the album. So that's what it meant to me. Sorry if that was long-winded.
No, it's beautiful. Any comments, questions? Yes.
Well, I just wanted to mention that shortly after I had been looking on social media at this event, and then something popped up, and you briefly mentioned the town in Puerto Rico. Is it Luisa?
Mm-hmm.
And up came all these beautiful murals, and I had never even heard of that town.
Right.
So how significant was that a port of entry for African slaves, or what happened there?
Yeah, so it's a mixture of, Roberto Clemente is from there. He's from Loíza. A lot of the original salsa singers, like Ismael Rivera, he's from Loíza. He's from Santurce as well. But it was a place where they did a lot of slave revolts there. And then also if you go to Loíza, there's a lot of mangroves. So like the enslaved people used to hide in the mangroves. But it's also ended up becoming a town, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for freed enslaved people as well. And then there was a time where, so yes, to answer your question, it was a very special place for people of African descent, both enslaved and otherwise. So yes. And if you go to Loíza and also some Ponce, you will see a lot of people of African descent there.
Let me add just
Yes.
Luisa was the place where a lot of Africans in the Caribbean escaped to.
Yes.
And like the Maroons of Jamaica. And so in Luisa, those African slaves who escaped from different colonized lands across the Caribbean merged in Luisa. And then what they did was they protected it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
as colonized
Mm-hmm.
for the protection of African, formerly enslaved African people
Right.
in the Spanish colonies.
So just to add on to that, I mean, you know, because we're talking about the history, they also defended the island from there as well. There was a time where the Spanish told like everyone in the Caribbean, if you want to get your freedom, come to Puerto Rico and help us defend the island. And a lot of them moved to Loíza, and they were able to defend the island from the British. I believe it was the Dutch. There was a bunch of different colonial powers that were trying to take over Puerto Rico. So anyone? Yes. We could talk about this forever, man.
One of the things that was very interesting about the Caribbean and even in the United States is the role that Haiti played.
Right.
All of those places maintained their liberation because Haiti was the first island or Western Black republic
That's right.
that found itself in its freedom.
Yes.
So Haitians fought for the liberty of African people across the West, including in the Caribbean, but also in the United States. So we had Haitians who actually fought in our Civil War
Yes.
for the freedom of African people in the United States.
If it wasn't for Haiti, we wouldn't have, was it Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama? Yeah. So just to add there, any other questions?
I just want to say that
Yes.
I totally love this whole discussion.
Mhm.
I'm New York City born and raised. My parents are Cuban.
Me too.
But I was raised amongst Puerto Ricans my entire life.
Right.
And there's a saying, Cuba y Puerto Rico, un pájaro de las dos mismas aves.
It's the same.
Right?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
are-
yeah.
We are the same, just two different wings of one bird.
Right, right.
So with that being said, your presence on social media,
Thank you.
your presence, and I follow you, and I was up there and said, Soulful Cubana, that was me, that liked your video. My son's like, Mommy, shut up, don't say anything. But I'm, where we live,
Right.
New York is one thing, Miami's another, but Spartanburg, South Carolina
It's different.
needs to see that people like you, like me, like my son, like Araceli, like everyone here, we're here.
Right.
We're not going anywhere.
Right.
You know, and we have the right to speak up and let it be known
Mhm.
that we are educated
That's right.
and we can speak our mind.
That's right.
Y que somos bilingües.
That's
Me
right.
gusta.
Of course.
Right? So this is the point that I love what you do.
Thank you.
And this is the era to do it in, which is now. Because, are you kidding? Content creators? I'm a retired educator. You guys make more money than I ever made in my lifetime as an educator. But all kidding aside,
Right.
I applaud you.
Thank you.
I think you're doing a fabulous job.
Thank you so much.
You're so
Anyone else? No?
As a Black Puerto Rican person doing like history
Mhm.
on not just Puerto Rico but like on all history.
Right.
Because I think I saw you at the No King's Day March.
Yes.
Okay.
I knew you looked familiar.
Okay, I was
And,
like, hey.
yeah.
So how do you in those spaces that are not bilingual, how do you one hold yourself, and then the other question is how do you I was trying to formulate this question, but like how do you combat when people that are Hispanic
Right.
look at you like, oh, you speak Spanish?
Yeah. So
And
what?
because
Yeah.
The reason why I ask is, as a Black Cuban person, that pisses me off.
Yeah. So like, one thing I would say, Shonda Rhimes has this really good quote. Any room that you're in, you belong in, right? So full stop. There's never a room that I go in that I don't belong in. If I'm there, I belong there. And that's intellectually, that's the full package, right? So, and then when I encounter people from Latin America that are surprised, it's never the people that are like really from that country. It's like usually like their kids or their grandkids that have never really been there. So like, because people that are like, if I'm talking to somebody from Venezuela, Colombia, they're from the country. They're not surprised, right? but their kids, their grandkids, sometimes they are. And like, I feel like, maybe that's because they just don't know. And yeah, it's something that you get pissed off about, but like, I see it as a point of education. Like, for example, I was in Chicago, and this lady was, she was from Mexico, but she was from Mexico City, right? She wasn't like from Boca Chica or like places where there would be Afro-Mexicans. She was from Mexico City. And she was like, oh, I thought you were Dominican. I didn't think, whatever. And, I just used it as an opportunity to like, be like, I'm Puerto Rican. And like, so I feel like, you're right to get upset, but I always try to use it as a point of education. Unless people get disrespectful, then you match the energy. So yeah. Anyone else?
I think it's interesting that you're from New York.
Mm-hmm.
Because I lived in New York for a while, but I'm from Texas.
Okay.
And I was born and raised in Fort Worth. And since my grandfather and his mother, they're Panamanian and Afro-Panamanian.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand what it's like to be black and people constantly asking you, where did you learn Spanish from? Right.
Right.
I will say, I was able to better understand that confusion when I moved to New York
Mm-hmm.
and lived in New York for a while, because I recognized that the full array of what it means to be Latino and Hispanic is represented there, and it is not flat.
Right.
So when my grandfather moved to Texas and his mother during the era of segregation, it didn't matter. You're talking about Roberto Clemente. Roberto Clemente, when he played in the South, they didn't
Yeah.
say that he was
Puerto Rican. No, they didn't.
He was black.
Right.
That's right. And he had to go where black people lived.
Yes.
And the same thing with my grandfather, like that there was no care or concern about that. And so I'm curious, when you're thinking about these kind of public histories, how do you keep those narratives forefront? Because I think sometimes there's a desire to flatten what it means to be Latino and Latina. I don't say Latinx, I just feel like it's common.
Understood.
But how do you keep that narrative there so that we don't flatten what it means to be a part of Black youth?
I think my presence on the internet already does it. Like, I've never, honestly, to be truthful, I've never thought of it like that. I grew up around a lot of Puerto Ricans, a lot of Dominicans, and African Americans, and like, I come to the realization that like, especially Caribbean Latinidad is a completely different spectrum than a lot of South American and Central American Latinidad. I mean, my presence on the internet, especially if I start speaking Spanish, is like, it blows people. Like, the people are just like, whatever, So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, but I've never thought of it. Anyone else?
And maybe a question for you all is, based on this very powerful presentation, and if we follow you, how are you going to use your voice to celebrate Black History Month, but also to share with the world the knowledge that you have, but that not enough people have, of our communities, and whether that be multilingually. I don't know if anyone wants to share that.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
When I first moved to Spartanburg, and I was teaching at Spartanburg High School, and we had done Hispanic Heritage Month in October, but I said, February, let's do Afro-Latinos. And everybody was gonna be like, what?
What's that, right?
So I did a little presentation on Celia Cruz, and I'm presenting Gimba, 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 Gimba. And my student goes, but miss, she's Black.
Right.
And I said, yes, baby, she is Black, but she's also Cuban.
Right.
And this is what you understand. During the Middle Passage, they came through, the first couple of islands were the Caribbean islands, and was Puerto Rico, Haiti, Cuba. And she's Black Cuban.
Right.
But Miss Moore, I didn't know that. And not just students, teachers.
Right.
So what did I do? My teacher wife and I made this whole theme of Afro-Latinos.
Right.
And we introduced Roberto Clemente. We introduced Celia Cruz. we introduced Schomburg
Right.
from New York.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, miss. And then I said, and look at my family.
Mm-hmm.
My ex-husband is black.
Right.
My sons are Afro-Latino.
Mm-hmm.
So I brought that personal experience.
Of course.
And every year at Spartanburg High School, we did that when I started. We celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month, but with Black History Month, we also introduced the Latino.
Yeah.
And I think that was really important because a lot of folks did not know that you could be black and hablar español.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which was like dumbfounding to
Right,
me.
right.
But then again, you know, you move and you realize everything's different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Blackness is everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyone else?
It sounds like we may be ready to take our group photo.
Yes.
And to agradecerte, to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Please sign in, but in the next minute, if we can all gather here. Oh no, I'm gonna count to 5. Oh no. We're gonna go here and take a big group
photo?
picture.
Sure.
Yes, and with you in the
Yay.
front, and no one is